supply chain doesn't break, it stalls. Most people blame trucks or factories or ports or labor shortages, but the real reason supply chains stall, especially for growing businesses, is often much simpler. The cash timing doesn't support the next step in the chain. And once you understand that, financing tools stop looking like debt and start looking more like logistics, ways to move cash to the right link in the chain at the right time. And in this video, you're going to learn how to diagnose the cash choke point inside a supply chain and match it to the right financing tool so the chain keeps moving. I'm Shane Walton, co-founder of the Commercial Loan Broker Institute, and we've helped launch and support over 400 brokerages nationwide, and we maintain an active lender network that's used by brokers placing deals with hundreds of lenders. So what I'm about to walk through is the pattern that we see over and over in the supply chain. Businesses don't stall because the opportunity isn't real. They stall because there's timing gaps in the funding. So basics first. A supply chain is moving materials to manufacturing, to logistics, to distribution, to sale to the customer. And along the way, it's really a chain of dependencies. And it only moves as fast as the weakest link. If the materials don't arrive, nothing gets built. If equipment goes down, production stops. If warehousing isn't ready, then shipping is going to back up. And if retailing can't receive yet, the inventory piles up. That's the physical side. And most businesses don't stall out because they can't move a pallet. They stall because they can't fund the next step in the chain. And there are three separate flows that underlie every supply chain. This is a simple model that every supply chain runs on. Flow one is physical goods. That's what I was just talking about. It's stuff, physical stuff moving through the chain. Flow two, though, is agreements. And the supply chain is not just a movement of goods, it's a sequence of agreements that authorize each of those movements. Contracts, purchase orders, invoices, delivery confirmation, payment terms. These agreements are the permission slips that say, you can produce now, you can ship now, you can invoice now, you'll get paid later. Here's the paper that says it. And then you have flow number three, and that's cash. This is the capital, the fuel. And when cash is missing, the chain isn't just slowing down, it waits for the cash to arrive. So next, we're going to walk through why cash timing, not demand from the client side, from customers, is often the constraint for a huge number of businesses. And the exact questions that brokers can use to spot that restriction really quickly. So capital is this input across each of the different steps. And timing of that is the choke point that stops the process. Capital buys everything that is creating the motion. It's buying the materials, the labor, the equipment, the fuel, the inventory, the floor space, the repairs, the freight, everything along the way. So here's the real world situation that you've seen 1,000 times. A business lands a big contract and the opportunity is real. It's in their hands and the margins can even be great. But the business can't front the necessary inputs. A contract or an opportunity can be highly profitable and still be impossible for that business if the inputs can't be funded. That's supply chain financing in one sentence. And this is why you'll meet businesses that look healthy on paper, but they still can't take the next job. It's not because they're failing, but because their cash timing is wrong. Let's think of this like a clock. Right? We'll call it the cash clock or the cash in transit clock. And here's what that clock is measuring. You, as a business owner, pay cash out, and then you wait to get your cash back. And your cash clock is counting down how long it is between spending and collecting your cash. Cash goes out to suppliers for labor, for shipping, for inventory, and then cash comes back when your customer pays based on terms. So the cash clock is simply how long is cash tied up between sending it or spending it and collecting it. And the longer that cash clock is running for, the more working capital a business needs just to keep operations rolling. You can have demand, you can have profit margins, you can have good operations, and you can still stall out because the cash is stuck in transit. Cash clock is going for too long. So next, let's map the most common financing tools to specific points in that cash clock so that you can match the right tool to the right link to get things going again. What we've learned so far is that financing tools are really logistics tools. Success comes when you match the right tool to where cash is stuck so that you can get those gears working again and get the clock ticking faster so the money comes back more quickly. So here's the clean way to think about financing. It's not what type of loan do you want, client, but it's where is the cash actually getting stuck? And there are three common zones. First, you have front of process funding before the production starts. This is where you have a tangible order, but the business can't front the inputs. And there's two common levers that you can pull: purchase order financing or contract financing. This is where you have the order and you're using the validity and strength of that contract to underwrite getting capital that you can use to start the entire supply chain in motion. And then you have vendor terms or trade credit. And that's often the cheapest capital if it's available because you're extending your payables. But the point is that either way, you're funding the inputs that unlock fulfillment. Then you have mid-process. This is while you're operating, while you're producing and running. And this is when you're in motion, but you need the fuel to keep the engine churning along. And here you have working capital lines of credit. This is flexible fuel when cash flow is relatively consistent, but you need to have something for the dips and ebbs in the flow. Or equipment financing, when you need to keep that equipment up and operational, when the constraint isn't demand, it's more capacity. If the machine is the bottleneck, the capital tied to the machine is going to expand the throughput so that more can run through and the entire process can go more quickly. And then third, you have the back of chain funding. This is after delivery is done while you're waiting to get paid. And this is one of the most common choke points in supply chains because it stops you from taking the next project. The job is done, the goods are moved, the service is delivered, but your invoice is net 30 or 60 or 90, and the business is profitable in the long term, but it's cash starved in the short term. And the solution here is commonly invoice-based financing, AR financing, or factoring. And with this model, a company sells their invoices to get access to cash today instead of waiting for that cash clock to run through. And this is often thought of as financing, but technically it's selling an asset. You are selling your future receivables at a slightly discounted rate in order to accelerate that cash clock. And let's make this real with two quick stories. We'll look at a manufacturer and then look at someone in the logistics space so you can see exactly how financing tools are impacting the logistics and they're unlocking growth for the company. So a manufacturer first. All right, let's say we have a manufacturer who has a big order. They land a great contract and they're happy, but they have to buy the materials. They have to run the equipment. They have to pay labor before the customer is ever going to pay them. If they can't fund those inputs, they can't fulfill. If they can't fulfill, they can't take the contract, they can't grow, even with the demand sitting right there on the paper on their desk. And this is where that front of process, front of chain capital really matters. It's PO or contract style funding that moves the cash through the beginning of the chain, moves it right up to the start so production can start. The purpose here is to fund the inputs so that the order becomes something that the company can say yes to and move ahead with. Another example, let's take that logistics company that's waiting 30 days for payments. A logistics company is going to pay for the truck, the fuel, the driver to haul a load across the country. And they deliver their load safe and sound, and they invoice that client. And then they wait 30 days to get paid. And while they're waiting, they pick up another load, haul it to the other side of the country, paying for the fuel and the driver and the repairs along the way. They drop that and they pick up the next one, all while they're still waiting to get paid for the first service they provided. And add on to that, they have those same expenses occurring across 10, 20, or 30 different trucks, all simultaneously on the road. So they can be doing everything right as a company, but still hit a wall because they can't close that capital gap. And this is where invoice financing shows up. As soon as they invoice, they can turn that invoice into immediate cash. And they can use that money to pay for the fuel and the driver to carry the next load and the next. And this enables them to have more trucks on the road to serve more clients and to do it all profitably without running out of cash in the meantime. All right, remember, receivables are cash in your pocket with a delay, with a longer cash in transit clock. And all invoice-based financing does, or AR financing or factoring, is remove the delay. So let's get practical and turn this into a playbook that, as a broker, you can actually run. Step one is ask timeline questions to identify what the choke point is in the scenario that you're working in. You're looking for the cash gap. So you're asking, when do you pay suppliers? When do you pay labor? When do you ship? When do you invoice? What are the payment terms you're extending? What are the payment terms you're receiving from your suppliers? How many days from when cash goes out until it comes back? What's that clock actually say? And then the simplest question, what is the cash gap for you? And then step number two, you need to identify the stuck link, right? Where is their biggest pain point? Is the cash stuck early in the stage that they can't get anything running? Is it stuck in getting adequate inventory? Is it stuck in receivables? Is it capacity that's the constraint? Is it inputs or purchase orders? Where is the gap? And then step three, you want to match the tool to the challenge they're facing, right? Is this going to be a front of chain gap? Then you're probably looking at PO or contract financing. Is this a mid-chain in-process fuel gap? Well, then maybe you're looking at a working capital line of credit. Or is this back of chain after they've already delivered and shipped? Then it's invoice-based financing. Is it capacity that they can't get through their manufacturing? Maybe it's equipment financing. And this is why supply chain financing is so broker friendly. It's diagnostic, it's logical, it's repeatable, and it makes a huge impact on the businesses that you serve. And then step number four is to package like a pro. Where brokers win isn't knowing the product. It's translating the operating story into lender language. And along the way, bringing the proof of that story. Tell the narrative and show it on paper. And here's what funders are going to typically need by type. So for PO or contract, we're looking at the purchase order or the contract, a supplier quotes, what your margins are, the fulfillment plan and costs, and an evaluation of customer creditworthiness, though in many cases, the lender is going to be responsible for that part. And then for invoice or factoring, you're going to be looking for an AR aging report for your invoice history, for example invoices, information on customer concentration. They're going to want proof of delivery, history of any disputes, lines of credit. They're going to be doing more of an underwriting based on your company's strength, fiscal strength. So they're going to be looking at financials, bank statements, tax returns, the use of proceeds, how you're going to use it, and making sure that makes sense. If you can gather all of this cleanly, you're removing friction for all of the players and you're helping everyone to win. So in this final section, I'm going to show you how to turn this into a repeatable supply chain financing conversation that generates deals ethically and repeatably without sounding salesy or gimmicky in any way. So here's the cleanest way you can work this into your regular flow in your brokerage. Number one, you want to lead with diagnosis. You want to run a supply chain timing audit. And this can be very simple. It can be 5 questions, right? This is a quick sketch of the cash clock. And then from that, you're looking from that diagnostic to get to step number 2, clearly identify and get the customer's buy-in, your client, the company you're serving, their buy-in on exactly where the cash is stuck. And then you can move that into step 3. Identifying for them what tool is going to release the cash, how it's going to turn their cash clock, make it run much faster so that they can have smoother operations and less headaches at the end of the day. And this is the broker's value, right? You are not just matching a business to capital. You're helping a business to keep the supply chain moving for our country and often even outside of our country. Because in many cases, founders don't actually need just more money. They need money that's timed correctly, that they have at the right time to do what they need to do in order to be profitable. And when you speak that language, when you show them that you have that understanding, you become so valuable to manufacturers, distributors, logistics firms, any company where growth is creating a timing gap for them. So here's the big idea to really lock in. A supply chain runs on 3 flows: goods, agreements, and cash. And timing is the game for each of those. Supply chains don't break, they stall out. And that happens when cash timing doesn't support the next step in the process. And capital isn't debt as much as it is logistics, keeping that supply chain moving. So take this information, get out there, give big to your clients and lenders, and let's make this world a better place together.